Okay, so you're going to click on the slope ratio etool like this, and it's going to hopefully open up a Desmos screen for you. Here we go. And you need to kind of shrink the page down a little bit, so you can do that by just clicking the zoom out button or the zoom in button if you need to, so you can see what we're looking at here. So the very first problem asks you to draw a 45-90 triangle on your page. And so this is kind of what the 45-45-90 is going to look like, all right? So here's some directions on how to use this little tool in Desmos. Drag the angle slider for the desired degrees. This right here is the angle slider. So if you click on it and move your mouse left or right, it changes the angle of your slope line, okay? So I'm going to make sure that that's sitting on a 45 so you can see what that looks like, how it should be drawn in your paper. And then it says drag the delta X slider for the desired length, and delta Y and the slope are calculated, okay? So you can change basically the angle right here, and you can change the distance of this line right here. That's the change in X, delta X, okay? So the first part says to draw a slope triangle with a slope angle of 45, okay? So that's what we have. So now it wants you to visualize what's going to happen if this angle right here changes to 55 degrees. So I'm going to grab the little dot in the slider for the angle, and I'm going to drag it to the right to increase that angle so you can see how my number is moving. And you just kind of have to go slow. Get as close as you can. Sometimes it's a little tricky with your finger to get this thing exactly where you want it, so just get it as close as you can. So we've got a 55-degree angle here now, which is right here. And you can see what happened to the change in my y. The change in my x didn't change at all, but the change in y, that is the rise of my slope, got a lot bigger. So that's going to be the answer to your first question. So which one is going to change? It's going to be the y. And this is kind of like what we talked about before. The angle that you put right here, it really dictates the size of the line opposite of it, okay? The side opposite of that angle. The bigger this angle, the bigger this side. Okay, so then you're going to move on to the next part. So you're going to use your E-tool. Make sure you're set at 55. We're on 3-89 part B. So using the E-tool, create a triangle with a slope angle measuring 55 degrees, which I have right here. Then use the resulting slope ratio to solve for x in the triangle at the right. So the slope ratio is going to be dependent on what we set the x to be. So because we don't know what that is at this point, we can look at the slope ratio right here, and it'll tell us that the slope ratio is 1.428. So one thing to remember is that all your slope triangles for this line, no matter how big I make the triangle, that ratio between the change in y and the change in x right here is always going to be the same. So it doesn't matter how long I make this side, okay? This is going to get adjusted automatically to keep that proportion the same. So my slope ratio for here, they've gone ahead and put it into decimal format. So you have a 1.428148. Just round it to like 1.43. That's fine, okay? And then you're going to use that to calculate the value of your x. So for this particular problem, you have to use that as you would your scale factor and set it up. So you have something like 1.428 is equal to 8 over x, okay? And then you solve that for x, just like you would any other triangle. So remember, you're treating this this ratio as a decimal instead of just a fraction, but you can still set it up the same way that we did yesterday in class. So for this first one, you should get a value of approximately 5.6 or so for your change in your x value over here. So if you wanted to test that out, what you could do is grab this this little slider for the change in x bar, and you can move it until your y turns to an 8. So you can see the y value right here is shrinking. So I'm going to grab this and just keep moving it until that number gets as close to 8 as I can get it. And that is pretty dang close right there, 7.999. And you can see right here that the change in x is about 5.6. So you use this little ratio to help you find each of those different problems. Okay, so play around with this tool a little bit and use it to help you figure out the rest of these problems, especially 90, 91, and 92. 92 is that learning log entry that you need to answer. Tomorrow I'm going to ask you to retype your answers into a Google question, and we're going to share those with the whole class. So make sure you talk those over with your team and have some really good responses to share. All right, thanks. I'll see you guys tomorrow.